Anna, donc, qui est infirmière et gameuse, donc, qui a monté une entreprise à ce sujet, dans laquelle elle a réussi à marier donc, ces deux passions, c'est-à-dire le jeu et la santé. Et donc, elle va nous expliquer comment le jeu peut révolutionner les soins en santé en 5 étapes. À toi, Anna.
Merci. Je vais faire ma présentation en anglais, mais tout d'abord, j'ai quelques questions. Donc, si vous pouvez faire comme ça, si vous êtes d'accord avec moi, ok? Donc, la première question, c'est est-ce que vous connaissez la gamification? Ok, parfait. La seconde question, c'est est-ce que vous croyez que le Serious Games are the way to go pour la santé? Je croyais sur le jeu vidéo. Ok. Donc, pour ceux qui ne croient pas encore, j'ai un petit jeu que je voudrais jouer avec vous. Donc, ce petit jeu, c'est spécial parce qu'il nous fait sentir 10 émotions pendant 1 minute. On joue pendant 1 minute, on a 10 émotions. Donc, ces 10 émotions sont happiness, je vais les dire en anglais. Happiness, relief, love, surprise, pride, curiosity, excitement, admiration, satisfaction and creativity. Donc, je pense qu'avec cette introduction, on a tout le monde qui va jouer à ce jeu magnifique qui nous va faire sentir 10 sensations en même temps, 10 émotions. Donc, pour ce jeu, je vais me permettre... Est-ce que j'ai un micro que je peux amener partout? Merci.
Sur la table, celui-là, est-ce que marche?
Ok. Donc, pour jouer ce jeu, je vous encourage à vous lever. En fait, je vais me permettre d'aller là au milieu pour pouvoir jouer avec vous aussi. Donc, on va jouer à un jeu qui s'appelle Multiplayer Thumb Death Game. Okay? C'est inventé par un monsieur de l'Austrie. Et du coup, ça se joue comme ça. Viens, on va le tester. Donc, tu me prends la main comme ça. OK? Mets-toi comme ça. Alors, on fait 1, je parle de l'autre côté, 2, 3, et maintenant, c'est la guerre. Donc, lui, il est super bon dans ces jeux. Il me casse tout de suite. Bah, voilà. Donc, il a gagné. Mais la différence, c'est qu'on va les faire multiplayer. Donc, on va revenir ici au milieu. On va demander, s'il vous plaît, à Nabil de nous joindre dans ce jeu. Donc, alors, rentrez dedans. The more the merrier. OK? Et alors, on va faire les 1, 2, 3. Et alors, la guerre, c'est parti. OK, donc maintenant... Ok, maintenant je vais vous demander de vous lever tous et essayer de faire ça. Ok. La condition, c'est que vous êtes au moins 3 personnes. Ok. Sinon, c'est pas multiplayer, c'est tout. Donc, on va se mettre tous ensemble. Non, mais on joue aussi. Come on. Come on, come on. Ok, on est préparé, on fait les 1, 2, 3, hein, d'abord, on joue pas bien. Hein, donc 1, 2, 3, ok, c'est parti, c'est la guerre. Non, ok. We have a lever. Ok. Merci beaucoup à tous. Donc moi, je suis un fier believer que les jeux ont beaucoup à nous rapporter dans notre vie, qu'ils ont beaucoup à nous rapporter dans notre vie réelle. Donc c'est pour ça aussi que je suis spécialiste dans la gamification. Donc comment rapporter des choses qu'on apprend dans les jeux dans la vie réelle. Donc du coup, voilà, c'est un peu la bio. C'est ce que je fais. En tant qu'infirmière, je fais beaucoup essayer de partager la connaissance que j'ai sur les jeux à niveau santé, parce que pour ma profession, donc j'essaye de la partager dans toutes les universités que je peux. et de faire des trucs comme ça, de venir à parler pour les gens, pour qu'ils puissent spread the word. Donc voilà, donc je me fais... now I'm going to switch to English. Okay, so I've did a resume of 5 points in which I believe firmly that video games can really, really help us in healthcare. So the first one is turning stress into challenge. That's the first things that games do naturally, and we're not able to do in our real life. Now, the second one is finding the right allies. That's another thing that video games help us do quite easily, and that we're not able to actually mimetize in real life. The third one is super interesting, the strength to believe in our own abilities. There's recent research on this, which I think is very exciting. Find meaning, purpose, and motivation to do things, to accomplish things, whether it's in healthcare, well-being, real life, whatever you want to call it. And the fifth one is the mind as a powerful tool. We've known for centuries that the mind is powerful. Let's see how games can help us tap into this power. So first of all, if I say the word stress, how many of you would associate it to something, to negative emotions? Okay, so most of you. So when I ask these to my students, which I have the opportunity to have every year, about 90% express something. I tell them to write 3 words. I say stress and write 3 words. Most of them are negative. So what I notice is that people talks about anxiety a lot, talks about not feeling well, talks about wanting to put music on and just stop and forget. Now, this is because when we talk about stress, we weigh the future with what we're going to lose going through this stressful process, right? So something really different happens when we talk about challenge. Now, how many of you associate challenge to something positive? So it turns out that when we talk about challenge, people feel intrigue, feels curiosity, they want to move forward. So how many of you, and this is probably going to hit home for many of you, when you're stressed, someone comes along and says, hey, chill, just breathe and relax. And you feel super frustrated because you can't do this. So it turns out that when you're stressed, you have adrenaline in your body, you breathe faster, and your heart rate goes faster as well. When you're relaxed, you're completely the opposite. No adrenaline in the body, your breathing slows down and your heart rate slows down. So to go from stress to relax, you need to ask your body to physically change. So what happens when you're in challenge? When you're in challenge, do you segregate adrenaline? Yes, you do. Does your breathing go faster? Yes. Does your heart rate go faster? Yes. So why don't we go from stress to challenge? So actually, there's a very quick way to go from stress to challenge if you're ever in this situation. So you just have to tell yourself 3 times, I am very excited about whatever it is that you are facing, like this exam or this presentation. And then you change, because the difference between being stressed or being challenged is actually on the mind. It's not on the body. So I don't know if you noticed, but games do this very well. They constantly face you with challenge, but you don't in well-designed games. You know, I won't do this apart again, but in well-designed games, you do feel like you're being challenged all the time, and you do not feel stressed. Why does this happen? So turns out that there's been more studies on how to do good video games in the world. So one of the biggest studies is the biggest philosophy behind how to do good games. It's the PENS model. So PENS model has 3 main points, which is competence, autonomy, and relatedness. We're going to talk about these 2 because these are related to stress and challenge, or feeling challenged, that is. So competence and autonomy in games need to be balanced, okay? So that means, to put it in a very simple example, imagine that you want to do in a motorcycle, and you want to do jumps, like inverse jumps, like 360 jumps and stuff like that. You want to learn how to do this, and that's very exciting. So they give you a super cool motorcycle and a very nice place to do all these jumps, okay? Turns out you've never put yourself in a motorcycle before. Are you even going to try, or are you just gonna quit? So this is a system that has very little competence and loads of autonomy. You can do whatever you want with a motorcycle, but you've never been in a motorcycle before, so you have no idea how to use it. The same happens when it's the other case. So imagine that you have lots of competence. You are an Olympic person with motorcycles, and you're put with a little kid's motorcycle, you know, in a very plain place, then you're probably going to quit the system because it's boring. So that's not a good way to challenge someone. So this is another example of not balancing competence and autonomy. So in video games, competence and autonomy, well balanced, allow for this challenge mindset to happen. So I believe this is something that we do very little in healthcare. Me, myself, I found myself facing this the day that I had to explain someone how to manage their diabetes. So when I asked them, when I did their training for the diabetes, I talked to them about 1 hour about what diabetes was and whatnot. And then I gave them a pamphlet and said, see you in 2 days, see how you're doing. Turns out that after the 2 days, the person came back and they were completely clueless about what they were supposed to do, and they had quit the system. They weren't writing things down anymore. They got frustrated, and I was frustrated as well. This was because I left someone with very little competence, lots of autonomy, so he quit the system. It was not a well-designed system. The second thing, finding the right allies. We know that communities and body systems work. Communities such as AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, help each other not fall into drinking alcohol again. Body systems, whether it's in businesses to try to have someone that comes into the business feel more friendly with everyone else, or systems where you pair people to lose weight, work better than when we try to do things alone. So we know that works. We've been doing it for years. However, games do that in a very powerful way. So I don't know how many of you know World of Warcraft. Does that ring a bell? Okay, so for the rest, World of Warcraft is a game where you can be a troll, an elf, an orc, whatever. You create your character, you go inside a game, and the game is a world, and you can explore and run around. And every other character, you know, every other elf running around in that place, they are someone in their house playing, right? So when you enter World of Warcraft, you have a 1. You're level 1 and you have a big 1. Everybody can see it. So the people that's around that area are most likely going to be level 1s as well. And you can see that, oh, that's a level 1. Turns out that with that person, automatically, just because they're level 1, they probably have the same quest that you have. And they probably have the same objectives that you have. So it's very easy to start and to find someone at your level at that moment. So it's very easy to find allies. And so why is this important? And why is this important in life and in games? So this is relatedness. Do you know, remember that I told you that there were 3 things that made video games powerful, which was competence, ability, and relatedness. Competence, autonomy, and relatedness. So relatedness is the need of love, the need of feeling trusted, the need of trusting, and the need of feeling like someone cares and that you care. So how many of you remember Farmville? Okay, Farmville was a game that you had a farm and you had to like make the crops grow and whatnot. This was the first game that boomed games in Facebook. Why? Because it was the first one that had this contemplated. So you could make friends with other people that had farms, and then you could go to their farms and help them with their crops, and they could come to your farm and help you with your crops. So because it had this point, and it was the first game on Facebook that did this, it exploded. It was so big that if you put everyone that played Farmville together, they were the third mundial power or something like that. Like you were the third world that would be biggest in the world, to put it this way. So the third one is strength the belief in your own abilities. How many of you know this game? It's called Remission. It's been around for a while. Okay, so Remission, what is important to retain about this game, it was created by Hope Lab with UCLA professor Steve Cole, and the point of the game was to make the children understand why it's important to take their medication. Okay, so it was driven for adherence to treatment. It was created to ameliorate adherence. So, but that was not the. They found out that by playing the game, the kids that played the game over they only had, I think it was 2 to 3 hours of play session, so quite short. And just with that play session, they increased the adherence of treatment in the next 3 months. But that was not the most powerful thing, and this is not why I talk about Remission today. Why I talk about Remission today is because they also kept track of the emotions of the kids, the stress they were facing, how well they were feeling, were they, in pain or not, whatnot. And both groups, the ones that played and the ones that didn't play, felt pretty much the same, minus in one thing. So this one thing that they were different was that the kids that played the game, they felt like they were more powerful and more optimistic over the course of the treatment. And just that, just by feeling like they could impact positively their health, they actually had more willpower than the other kids that did not play the game. And this is what makes it important. So this is what we call a state of self-efficacy. When you feel self-efficacy is literally when you feel that you have the skills and abilities to overcome an obstacle or get to a goal, get to an objective. So video games do this all the time. They make you feel like you're competent enough to achieve something. Whether you might not be doing it right now, but you know you're competent enough to do it. So they make you feel this state of self-efficacy constantly. Now, what was interesting about this is that these kids were able to feel this self-efficacy outside the game as well. And during these 3 months that lasted the trial. So this is what we think it's super powerful and needs to be explored, how we can do this more in healthcare and in life. So find meaning, purpose, and motivation, that's my step number 4. So to put this into context, let me explain you something. As a nurse, one of the tasks that we have to do in hospitals, when we have people long time staying, is we need to make them walk. If you have a person that's ill and you have them all day in bed, that's not good. If they are healthy enough, if they are okay enough, they should be walking a little bit, okay? So as a nurse, you go around the rooms trying to, encourage people to do a little walk. Come on, let's go to the hall, do a little walk. And that was not very successful, as you can imagine. So until this game came around. Do you recognize this game? It's Pokemon Go. So this is the story of a hospital, a pediatric hospital over in Chicago. They had this problem until this game came out. Turns out that in the hospital they had 3 Pokestops. So the kids would go to the Pokestop. So 1, the nurses did not have to go around telling kids to walk because the kids were already walking. And 2, the surveys went up. Why? Because all of a sudden these kids were having more interactions with other kids on the Pokestops because they were all like the meeting points. And the parents were having also better experiences, seeing their kids, run around and be social and stuff, and being able to meet other parents that had kids in the hospital as well. So that's what made this better. This is not a game created for health. It's just sort of like the impacts of the side effects of a game that's well designed. So another thing that helped these kids is that they were not, sick kids anymore. They were Pokemon masters. They had a purpose. Let's get as many Pokemons as we can, and let's level up and be the greatest Pokemon master there is. So they had, this epic story. So their effort of actually going and walking was rewarded all the time. And the last one, see the mind as a powerful tool. So we've been doing this for centuries. I'm not saying anything new here. Meditation, mindfulness, they all tap into this superpower that we all have just because we have a brain. And so what's very cool about this is an example of how we can use this superpower. I don't know if you know this game in particular. It's called Snow World. It was created a while ago to demonstrate how we can use games to mitigate pain. So this was done with burn patients, so patients that have been burned widely, like very long burns, and they describe their pain. You have to, I was a nurse for burn patients, and you have to treat them every day. Every day you have to take their bandages out and replace them. Now, how this feels for the person that's burned, it feels like you're taking their skin out. So it's extremely painful. And they are very, very painful rehabilitation as well. So by playing this game, what they wanted to do is make them feel, in a snow world where you see snow and you don't see fire, and where your objective is just to try to knock down the little snowmen and the little penguins with the ball, with the snowball. So turns out that this had a very impactful, it was very impactful. Their sensation of pain came down to about 66% less than when they weren't playing the game. And once people had played the game, they did not want to have the rehabilitation or cures done without the game. They were scared of doing it without. So, and another very interesting thing is that they have the MRI that I don't have here, but they had the MRI for these people, and it turns out that the frontal cortex, or the frontal part of the brain, it was excited when they were playing this game. So that means that they were focusing on objectives, they were focusing on short-term and long-term objectives rather than the actual pain, and that requires a lot from your brain, so hence the brain could not listen to the pain signals. Other things that are being studied is like, so it turns out that when we play games, we segregate dopamine, that we know. The cool thing is that people that play games often, when they lose, they also segregate dopamine. They don't only segregate when they win, they also segregate when they lose. Now, dopamine, besides being associated to drugs and whatnot, it's also associated to memory and learning processes. So that means that you actually learn more when you fail and you're a gamer, because you are able to, because you segregate dopamine versus the rest that are non-gamers. So just remember, these are the 5 things that games can really help us portraying health, turning stress into challenge, finding the right allies, strength to believe on our own abilities, find meaning, purpose, and motivation, and using it as a powerful tool that it is, because we all have that superpower and it's within us. It's just a matter of exploiting it. Before I close, I'd like to say this is something that we're experimenting at Play Benefit. So Play Benefit is a consultancy. We work mainly with providers in healthcare to gamify their systems, their products, their softwares, but we also develop our own solutions from time to time. This is a solution that we're working on at the moment. It's called Be Energy, and what it means, what it tries to do is through, as you see here in the middle, through nutrition, exercise, environment, your digestive system, sleep, and your mind, how you see the world, how positive you are. We're trying to help people be more mindful and more into prevention. So it's basically a nurse hidden inside here that tries to make you have a exciting, healthy lifestyle. So we do this by giving you quests rather than teaching you stuff, and we do this by resuming the information that we give the users in very small 2-minute videos, and then something to do with that information. That's super important. So We don't just give you information, we give you information and then we make you do something with it. And that's pretty much everything. Those 5 points were a resume of like a bunch of science behind it and a bunch of studies. If you're interested, you can purchase this book on Amazon. It's very cheap, it's like €3. It was, when we were thinking about the price, we just wanted to have people spread the word, so that's why it's so cheap. So feel free to spread it around, share it with people. I'll be happy to know that you've liked the book and what it tries to portray. Thank you. That's pretty much it.
Merci Anna. Est-ce que la salle a des questions? Alors, pour simplifier, on va les poser en russe, les questions, comme ça, tout le monde sera content. Non? Et en français non plus?
Je peux parler français aussi. Pas pour la présentation, parce que sinon on aura pris 40 minutes, mais...
Alors, je vais en poser une. Peux-tu nous dire, Anna, comment tu vois le futur de la gamification, et as-tu un exemple, s'il te plaît?
Ok, très bonne question. Ça, c'était pas prévu du tout. Je pense qu'un truc qu'il faut, que je pense que ça va passer dans le futur, c'est qu'on n'aura plus autant d'interactions avec les applications qu'on a là. On aura plutôt des applications qui lisent de nous, qui lisent qu'est-ce qu'on fait, qu'est-ce qu'on arrête de faire et tout, et qui nous proposent à faire des choses dans les moments où on a besoin. Par exemple, imagine que j'ai une application dans mon portable qui sache que je suis femme, qui sache mais comment je vais au boulot et comment je retourne, et qui sache que du coup, je me promène au boulot et que je retourne en promenant au boulot, à la maison. Et que du coup, sache que c'est 6 heures de soir, quand je retourne chez moi, que dans mon chemin, il y a une boulangerie, et que parce que je suis une femme, normalement, on a une descente de sucre dans le sang, around 6 heures, 7 heures du soir. Donc du coup, l'application me propose, avant que je passe par la boulangerie, il me propose un nouveau schéma. Un nouveau schéma qui en plus va être interactif parce que je vais sortir mon portable et faire preposition. Tu veux gagner des points, on va faire un nouveau chemin à la maison parce que tu as beaucoup de chances de t'acheter quelque chose dans une boulangerie que tu vas passer. Donc, du coup, tu ouvres, tu fais ton chemin à la maison, il y a des boules qui se font petites à mesure que tu prends plus de temps pour y arriver. Et du coup, tu veux t'apressurer à passer pour tout seul. Et tu retournes à la maison, tu as un scoring qui dit combien de calories tu as fait, combien de points tu as fait, et les calories de le donut que tu n'as pas mangé, ou de le croissant que tu n'as pas mangé aussi. Donc voilà, donc, je pense que ça va être un peu plus comme ça et pas plutôt de réagir, interactionner.
Merci Anna finalement de respecter ce que tu proposes dans la façon de nous expliquer tout ça, de nous motiver. C'est toujours un plaisir de t'écouter. J'avais une remarque. Tous les soirs, j'ai mon téléphone qui me dit tu rentres chez toi. Je lui ai rien dit. Tu as 25 minutes d'autoroute à faire. Donc on est déjà là-dedans. C'est-à-dire qu'on est déjà, entre guillemets... Il sait en fait qu'aux alentours de 6 heures, et puis la direction de la voiture se faisant toujours dans la montée droite, et bien derrière, il va me dire combien de temps je vais mettre. C'est intéressant, ça commence à me titiller, et donc finalement, quelque part, si la boulangerie effectivement est ouverte, et moi je passe devant une boulangerie, donc la prochaine fois je vais repenser à toi, mais malheureusement je m'arrêterai. Et c'est vrai que je m'achète un croissant au jambon. Et donc, parce que les journées ont été dures. Donc ça, c'est pour dire que c'est déjà le présent, je pense. C'est déjà le présent.
C'est déjà le présent, mais il nous manque beaucoup d'artificial intelligence pour faire toutes les...
Mais c'est là, c'est-à-dire que on va dire, c'est comme dans Wall-E, on a déjà les 2 feuilles qui poussent. À mon sens, c'est ça. Et la deuxième chose, et je pense que là, je me tourne un peu vers les étudiants du master et puis vers mes collègues enseignants, Je crois qu'il faut qu'on arrive à faire ça. Enfin, typiquement, bon, vous le savez, c'est pas la première fois qu'Anna vient et on s'est un peu tous, comment dirais-je, imprimé de certaines de ces règles. L'idée, c'est quand même de faire des cours où on se motive tous quand même. Parce que, je ne sais pas, mais si vous arrivez le matin, vous faites la tronche, que les étudiants ils font la tronche, je veux dire, la journée est déjà perdue. Parce qu'en plus, on vient de recevoir les impôts, parce que derrière, il y a un truc qui ne passe pas bien. Et donc, dans tout cela, je crois qu'il y a des éléments qui sont des éléments de la vie quotidienne, quelque part, que l'on transpose et qui nous servent aussi comme moteur. Quand je disais ce matin, il faut qu'on se remette en question, mais c'est une énergie énorme. Je veux dire, l'expérience dont on discutait là, où je fais venir les étudiants en groupe une fois par semaine, ils sont 20, on travaille un article, et bien à midi, je leur dis, il est l'heure de partir. Ah bon, c'est déjà midi. Ça veut dire que quelque part, alors je n'ai pas fait la checklist, mais je suis là-dedans. C'est-à-dire que changer le stress en challenge, le stress, c'est qu'ils doivent passer l'examen à la fin de l'année. La première des choses, c'est de dire, mais vous allez y arriver. De toute façon, je sais que vous allez avoir 15. Parce qu'en plus, sans faire du learning analytics à un très haut niveau, on a, on va dire, suffisamment sur les 4 dernières années pour comprendre que s'ils bossent, il n'y a pas de raison. Par contre, après, il faut peut-être qu'il y a une logique. Alors, je cite souvent le livre de la jungle avec le serpent K qui dit « Aie confiance ». Et ça, c'est un élément important, c'est-à-dire que les gens n'ont pas confiance en eux. Et stress aussi parce que, n'ayant pas confiance en eux, quand on les met devant une situation difficile, tout s'écroule. Alors, est-ce que les patients, entre guillemets, la question qui est sous-jacente là-dedans, c'est est-ce que ça, on peut le tirer vers notre approche, j'oserais dire, classique d'enseignants, d'étudiants, et pas forcément dans une logique de patient, on va dire.
Ouais, en fait, ces points que je dis là sont des points qu'on a dans la vie en général, quoi. Donc, du coup, pour moi, c'est plutôt... on sache que ça marche, qu'on a des gens addicts aux jeux vidéo parce qu'ils ont ça dans les jeux vidéo. Donc, comment mettre ça dans la vie réelle? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut apprendre du jeu pour le mettre dans la vie réelle et faire que la vie réelle, c'est comme ça? Donc, je pense qu'on a beaucoup de choses à apprendre. Le Benz Model et des trucs comme ça qui sont très importants, qui on peut le repliquer dans la vie réelle. Pourquoi pas? Ouais, bien sûr. Plein de choses.
Merci. Donc, pour conclure, merci Anna, on peut l'applaudir encore une fois. Pour conclure cette séance, je dirais que ça nous renvoie à plusieurs choses qui ont été évoquées dans la matinée. L'état d'esprit entrepreneur, c'est-à-dire comment on fait de nos étudiants des entrepreneurs de leur potentiel, c'est-à-dire leur apprendre à le développer par eux-mêmes, bien sûr avec l'encadrement qu'on leur donne tout au long de leurs études. Le manque de confiance, c'est l'état d'esprit de croissance, théorisé par Carol Dweck. Donc vous pouvez vous appuyer sur le livre que j'ai cité, elle donne des conseils précieux pour leur apprendre à prendre confiance et à développer leur potentiel. Et puis enfin, les capacités communicationnelles, donc le théâtre. Au passage, juste sachez qu'un acteur qui monte sur scène se prépare 3 heures avant. Il se met dans le calme, introspection, travail de la voix, etc. L'enseignant, en général, il arrive plutôt 5 minutes après le début du cours. Moi-même, ça m'arrive. Mais bon, sachez que ça demande un temps de préparation, d'être performant en matière de communication. Les gens de théâtre se préparent 1 heure avant, dans le calme, sans voir plus personne, etc. Ça demande une introspection qui permet de faire don de soi, puisque l'enseignement, c'est le don de soi. C'est donner de son énergie et de son savoir à l'autre. Et ça demande ce transfert d'énergie, d'accepter de le donner, et puis quelque part de l'avoir stocké aussi. Donc c'est vrai que les jours où on est un peu malade, un petit peu... c'est arrêter toute sa vie et toutes ses préoccupations et passer dans son rôle d'enseignant. Et ça nécessite une énergie importante. Merci à tous pour cette session. Tu veux dire quelque chose?
Oui. Cette année, on parle beaucoup de Winston Churchill. Et je suis tombé sur une de ses citations, je voudrais vous faire juste partager. On vit de ce qu'on produit, de ce qu'on reçoit. On construit sa vie sur ce qu'on donne. Bon appétit.